Hebrews, Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Israel Wake Up. This is our Women's Advanced Bible Study, the 13th of August, 2026. Okay, our main topic will be the six historically irrefutable proof that Jesus never existed. We're gonna deal with that, and rightly divided. I've been talking about it lately. How a lot of secular people coming out and they are shining the light on the fact that the character of JC. Okay. So with that being said, you can go to our YouTube channel, The Prophets of Awakening. Check out our videos. We have over 1,000 or so videos that you can look at, examine, get the meat out. These videos will lead you to the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. We have our Cash App at the bottom of the screen for those that want to support this channel or help it move along. That too will be greatly appreciated. Okay, this Israel Wake Up is our sister channel to our main channel, which is Prophets of Awakening. For those that don't know, okay, this is a non-Messianic channel, right? And we deal with the Tanak and the Torah. Tanak being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and it consists of from Genesis to Malachi. And then the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by our Savior and our Redeemer, our Deliverer, the Lord of Hosts. Okay? This channel was created to aid and assist all Hebrews who are waking up to their true identity in these last days, and also finding out and understanding who their Savior and their Redeemer truly is. Shalom and welcome to the channel, and welcome to our Women's Advanced Bible Study. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, prayer, songs. We have a women's health moment with Michelle, current events. We have some need to know information, a little dialogue, and our topic for discussion. Like I said earlier, we'll be dealing with 6 historically irrefutable proofs that Jesus never really existed. Okay, and then our scripture reading we'll be reading our 3 chapters out of the book of Genesis, and we at chapters 41, 42, and 43. We're going to read those chapters and then break them down, okay? Then we'll pick a scripture and we'll break that scripture down, and then we'll go into our, we'll open it up for questions, comments, any dialogue or any testimonies, and then we'll close out, okay? This moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts, and all that he's doing bring about our prophesied deliverance to these last days. Oh Lord, we come before thee. We appreciate you, oh Lord, for your patience and guidance in these last days. Oh Lord, we thank you for your awakening of us to this great understanding of your word. Okay. Oh Lord, we see your mighty hand in the world's affairs and how you are constructing your people's deliverance. And we trust and rely upon thee. And for this cause, we honor and respect you greatly. Turn out thy face from us at this moment, but allow us in our searching of you, find you, O Lord, and to dwell with you. Peace be on you. Okay. Let me read this. Psalms right quick. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll read Psalms 28. It's a prayer for God's help. It's a Psalm of David. Unto thee will I pray, O Lord, my rock. Be not silent to me, lest if thou be silent to me, I become like them that go down into the pit. Hear the voice of my supplications when I cry unto thee, when I lift up my hands toward thy holy oracle. Draw me not away with the wicked and with the workers of iniquity, who speak peace to their neighbors, but mischief in their hearts. Give them according to their deeds, and according to the wickedness of their endeavors. Give them after the works of their hands. Render to them their desert, because they regard not the works of the Lord, nor the operations of his hand. He shall destroy them and not build them up. Blessed be the Lord, because ye have heard the voice of my supplication. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore, my heart greatly rejoiced, and with my song will I praise him. The Lord is their strength, and he is the saving strength of his anointed. Save the people, save thy people, and bless thine inheritance. Feed them also, and lift them up forever. Okay. So with that being said, I got any comments on that? Questions on Psalm 28?
Shalom, Brother Leonard, and shalom, everyone. Yes, sir. When it says because they do not regard the works of the Lord, nor the operations of His hands, what in it are they speaking on the wicked deeds that the people were doing? Um, is that what he's mentioning?
Well, they're talking about the creation. In the beginning, he created everything with his hands.
Yes, sir. But when they were speaking on, they do not regard the works of the Lord.
Right,
That's
the
saying
wicked.
that they're doing the wicked stuff. He's talking about the
Yeah,
wicked people.
yeah, the wicked. Yeah, just like in Second Samuel, when I read the verse about he told Nathan to tell David he's going to plant the children of Israel, his inheritance, and the children of wickedness is not going to afflict them no more. So that lets you know it's some wicked people on the earth, and then you got his people.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So with that being said, we're going to go into our women's health moment with Michelle. Okay.
Yes, sir. Shalom, everyone. Please note the information shared is for general and educational purposes only and is not to be considered medical advice or recommended treatment. Tonight, I'll be talking about the promised land diet and nutrition. Did you know that the Bible highlights 7 specific foods that symbolize the Lord of hosts' provisions and blessings? Tonight, we will explore the 7 foods of the promised land: wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey. These foods hold deep spiritual meaning while offering incredible health benefits. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verses 7 through 10, the promised land was described as a good land. Verse 7 says, "For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths, that spring out of valleys and hills." Verse 8, "A land of wheat and barley and vines and figs and pomegranates, a land of all olive and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without sacredness. Sacredness, I'm sorry. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass." Verse 10, "When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he had given thee." That was Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 7 through 10. These 7 foods reflect God's covenant care, meeting both physical and spiritual needs. Each one carried purpose, strengthening the Israelites for their journey while reminding them of the God who faithfully sustained them. Even today, they continue to symbolize his desire for our health, provision, and wholeness. The first one we will be discussing is wheat. Wheat is a common staple throughout the Tanakh and provides important nutrients including iron, magnesium, copper, zinc, vitamin E, and B vitamins. Together, these nutrients help support immune function, protect overall health, and promote emotional balance while nourishing the body and nervous system. Barley. Barley helps reduce inflammation, supports digestion, and protects the digestive lining. It also contains antioxidants that support heart health, healthy skin and hair, and the body's natural cleansing process. Grapes. Grapes are nutrient rich fruits that support heart health, brain function, immunity, skin, and digestion, largely due to their antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. Figs. Figs provide calcium, potassium, iron, and vitamin B6, supporting strong bones, healthy blood pressure, anemia prevention, memory, and stress balance. Pomegranates. Pomegranates keep skin youthful. They prevent inflammation in the heart and eye problems and even protect against cancer, especially breast cancer. It also prevents plaque buildup on teeth. I didn't know that about pomegranates. Six is olives. Olives are a nourishing promised land food, rich in healthy fats and antioxidants. They may support heart health, reduce inflammation, and help protect the body from oxidative stress. Last but not least is honey. Honey is a natural sweetener, cherished in scripture as a symbol of abundance, delight, and the Lord's provision. Honey offers numerous health benefits, including antioxidant support, antibacterial effects, improved heart health, wound healing, and digestive and immune support. The Lord of hosts designed certain foods not just to nourish our bodies, but to heal, sustain, and uplift us spiritually. These seven foods of the promised land, wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and honey, are powerful examples. These aren't just crops mentioned in the Bible, they're foods chosen by God for their spiritual and physical significance. Their continuous presence today reminds us of a meaningful truth. When the Lord of hosts makes a covenant, he keeps it. I will be reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 9. God has chosen Israel. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Tonight's discussion was on the promised land diet and nutrition, and I read from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 9. God has chosen Israel. Shalom, everyone.
Okay, okay, we appreciate that information. A lot of people don't know that those olives and that olive oil, they like miracle work. And not only that, honey, but a lot of people know about the honey, but a lot of people don't know about the olives, uh, how uh, how important they are, and then they are a major part of Israel's the nation of Israel when you go back in the scripture.
Yes,
You
sir.
always,
And as,
yeah,
yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
As I was researching that, sir, even the pomegranates, when I was researching that, I found out a lot of health benefits about the pomegranates, and I didn't know that it was in the Old Testament as much as it was.
Right. Yeah, we a lot of people about that when it comes to pomegranates. You will read it, but you don't really sink in. But that's what was on the two, remember the two columns, Jotham and the two columns coming into the temple at the
Yes,
top
sir.
of it. That were pomegranates, 100.
Wow.
A lot
Yes,
of people
sir.
don't know. We just read it the other day. Matter of fact, that's what's so crazy about it. We just talking about it. Okay, so with that being said, we'll go to our current events. We'll play them and then we'll talk about them. Okay, this first one was, I don't know if anybody know it, but uh, Trump's assassination attempt. On a catering truck from Air Force One and then going on to a smaller airplane to leave Turkey is astonishing enough. It's scary that there was this kind of a threat. But one of the elements of this incredible story has kind of been tempered for some reason. I spoke to a couple of people involved in this story, and I am not sure at all why it's been tempered. I'm told there were more than a dozen members of the White House pool, reporters,
along with a handful of White House staff and military personnel, in addition to these uniformed flight attendants, who were on the old Air Force One. And for some reason, they allowed that airplane to take off and fly to London through Turkish airspace when presumably there was a severe security threat such that Donald Trump could not take that state-of-the-art airplane to London. That's just unbelievable that if there was this kind of a threat, why would they let that airplane fly, Air Force One? Because the idea of putting Trump in the catering truck and then getting him onto another aircraft, well, what they were trying to show was that for all intents and purposes, people would believe Trump was still on the old Air Force One. And if he was still on the old Air Force One and there was a security threat targeting that aircraft, the Iranians would have believed that Trump was on Air Force One. That was the whole point. And yet he wasn't, but these unsuspecting reporters, White House staff, and military personnel were on that plane and they flew. I asked somebody who was involved in the story, why wouldn't they fake a mechanical problem and wait until Donald Trump was able to get through that area and get into safe airspace and then declare what happened? And they had no idea why that didn't happen. But the idea that these unsuspecting reporters and others, White House staff, just didn't know is pretty remarkable. And, the other thing that's kind of interesting is that they almost always have some reporter on planes that the president flies to chronicle anything that might happen.
Okay. Anybody heard anything about that? Got anything on it?
Shalom, everyone. Yes, sir. I heard something about it, and they were speaking on how leaving Turkey, he actually got on the old one. And he's saying he didn't get on the Air Force One, but he got on the Air Force One and didn't get on the new one. And it was said that someone, whoever it is, that was on the new one, he didn't want it to be around him, and he got on the old one. So it says on the New York
One of the things that really
Times,
stands.
What's that?
it says on New York Times that President Trump flew out of Turkey on Wednesday night on the old Air Force One instead of the new, as security precautions related to the resumption of the hostility with Iran, according to the people. So by them saying that part, and he's saying that he went on the old one, he's misspoken on that part.
Okay. Me myself, I would ask, with all that's going on, why would you even be over in that area anyway? That's the crazy part about it.
Yes, sir. I mean, he has nothing to do with that. Who's
Right.
been last person been over to Turkey was, if I'm not mistaken, it was either what's his name? The person who just not too long passed, um, Lindsey
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 Graham.
Graham. And then they also said that J.D. Vance is now back in the scene talking about stuff. So he's been out of camera shots for a long time, but now he's back.
Right. Okay. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay. Here go our next one.
Stands out to me, historically speaking, with our relationship with Israel, is that a lot of Americans were not informed about all the various times Israel actually worked against us. You keep hearing that Israel's a special ally, but whether you're talking about USS Liberty, whether you're talking about, look, I know that Jake Tapper attacked you for what you said about us arming terrorists in Syria at the behest of the Israelis, but that is what happened. We literally armed Al-Qaeda and ISIS terrorists in Syria. And ISIS has actually had a bit of a relationship with Israel. I mean, there were ISIS fighters who were receiving treatment after getting wounded in Syria. They were getting treatment in Israel. In fact, Israeli media was reporting about that at the time. And so that works against us. Al-Qaeda attacked us on 9/11. So how does it make sense to integrate a foreign country's military into our own, given the fact that they put their interests front and center, even if that means doing wrong by their own allies?
This is exactly the problem. We just have to realize that us and Israel, regardless of what we say or how comfortable we are with them, that we just have divergent agendas in many cases, not to mention the fact that, as you pointed out, the Israelis have and will work against us. And this shouldn't surprise us. Just Israel is a very small country. They are literally at war with the vast majority of their neighbors. If you just look at the history of their intelligence services, again, the Israelis are pretty upfront when they actually tell you who they are. The Israeli intelligence services basically say, we will stop at no ends, we will use any deceptions, we will use any means necessary to further our nation's goals. So to let these people have full access into our country is absolutely insane. And I would feel the same way basically about any country. But this is something that's much different. And again, even with our most, I'd say, close partnerships we have, like with the Five Eyes, with the Brits, et cetera, we don't do this. We already have rules on the books for how we share information, how we go and purchase new technology. A lot of the people who are in support of this new part of the NDAA are going to say, well, the Israelis do a great job with tech and research and development. And to a certain extent, there's some validity to that case. But look, there's no reason why we can't go over there and simply purchase or come up with an agreement on a case-by-case issue if there's a specific piece of technology that we want. We do that all the time, all over the world. There's no reason to let them into, our most secretive compartments where we're developing our own technology.
So talk to me a little bit about the give and take when it would come to integrating their military with our own, because there's quite a bit that they would benefit from, certainly. And they would have, by the way, they would have the ability to spy on Americans even more than they already do. I don't understand how that would benefit us in any way, shape, or form. But aside from that, what would they contribute really to our military that we can't either develop on our own or we already have?
There's nothing. And I think anyone who's going to come and say, well, the Israelis can do this one thing, much better than we can, I just think that's absurd. I've heard that for years. There was an obsession for a very long time within, special operations and other parts of the military that the Israelis were out there plying their trade every single day. That was something of a myth during the peacetime years when I came in the military, that the Israelis were in the fight every day. And so, anything that came out of Israel was going to be the greatest tactic, the greatest piece of technology. We've been fighting, unfortunately, we've been fighting in the Middle East now for well over 20 years. So we have plenty of experience. America is where Silicon Valley is. I mean, we are the foundation of a lot of this tech. And so I don't think we should forget that. We should remember who we are. And if there's a development, there's a piece of technology that we need, we can develop it on our own. We have the brain power here to do that. There's no reason why we need to go to the Israelis and say, well, you guys can just come on in. I just think that whole argument is preposterous. We should really just be clear-eyed and just see this as yet another entry point that the Israeli intelligence services have found to get themselves deeply embedded with America. Because again, that's in their vital national security interest for the Israelis. If they lose the support of the American government, then they're in a very, very bad way. They know they're probably going to lose the $3.8 billion. They understand that. And so they're actually getting ahead of us by trying to build it into the NDAA now. And that's why we need a lot of public pressure to our representatives to stop this, to get this section cut out of the NDAA.
.com/TYT.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. This makes the whole China buying up property next to military bases look almost like JV stuff. I mean, this basically gives them the keys to the kingdom, and I think this being baked into the NDAA and allowing for the Israelis to come in and do joint manufacturing ventures that become programs of record. Because right now, Israeli companies, they can usually find a dual citizen, they can come to America, and they can attempt to get a contract with the U.S. government. And those contracts are hard to get. They're made on case by case bases. However, by actually having it codified into the NDAA, a lot of these different companies could become what we call programs of record, and that would give them basically the ability to get consistent contracts with the DoD. Then they're going to go to different parts of the country and they're going to say, hey, we can set up a manufacturing facility here, and suddenly they're going to be able to get influence with senators, with congressmen who are going to say, I'm bringing home the bacon for my district, for my state, we're creating jobs here. Again, we have to look at this from an intelligence perspective. This is just another means of leverage and manipulation that the Israelis are going to be able to use on our government. And again, we have to ask, like, what's the gain? Again, I just say America needs to kind of stand with our shoulders square and say, hey, we actually are the home of most of this tech. We don't need the Israelis to have a technological advantage on the battlefield.
Okay. Any comments on that? Feedback? Okay, yeah, so I'll keep on bringing that up because a lot of people need to know that that's really, like you said, it's ludicrous. All of a sudden, America needs to merge their military with Israel military, and when you hear that, to me, alarm bells go off, and then it's prophetic to me. Okay, so with that being said, we go to our need to know information, and this right here is kind of alarming because of I'm gonna do some more research on it, but this right here is coming from information that was in the book of Enoch, and it goes into describing how the Nephilim looked, and the people that came forth from the giants, how they looked, and the people that came forth from when the angels mixed with the women. It gives DNA characteristics. Check it out. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Eyes were beautiful, and when he opened them, the house was illuminated.
Go back. Okay,
in the Dead Sea Scrolls, describing Noah's birth, that Lamech treated as a crisis. The child's eyes lit up the room. Not figuratively. Lamech ran to his father because the child did not look like his. But what almost no one discusses is that the same Enochic tradition preserves a catalog of eye types, specific bloodline markers passed down from the Watcher descent. The catalog names which ones carry what it calls the old blood, and the church removed it from canon before most people ever had the chance to read it. And before we go further, I need to pause for a second, because what I'm about to tell you gets significantly darker. And I realized a while ago that some of this cannot be fully explained in a video format. The complete reconstruction of the bloodline markers, Enoch actually recorded the specific GES terminology used to classify each eye type, the 4 descent lines named in the fragments, and the physical traits attributed to each one. The complete Aramaic rendering of the passage the Council of Laodicea flagged for removal. Word for word, I put it all into a written document. It's linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Now let's continue. Scroll 1Q20 from Cave 1 at Qumran is called the Genesis Apocryphon. Right. It was found in 1947 among the Dead Sea Scrolls and contains an extended Aramaic retelling of early Genesis that fills in details the biblical text omits entirely. The passage that concerns us is column 2, the account of Noah's birth told through Lamech's own voice. Lamech describes what he saw when his wife Beatnosh gave birth. The child's body was white as snow, his hair was the same, and his eyes were described with a phrase that translators have handled carefully ever since. The Aramaic says his gaze lit up the whole house like the sun. Lamech reads this as evidence that the child is not his. His immediate fear is that Beitnosh had been visited by one of the Watchers. The angelic beings described throughout the Enochic literature as having descended to earth and taken human women against the design of God. The child's appearance was so distinct that Lamech's first conclusion was that something non-human had left a mark on the lineage. This matters because it tells us how the ancient tradition understood the relationship between appearance and ancestry. It was not a casual observation. It was a diagnostic. Lamech recognized the features as a category of sign. Not a beautiful child with unusual coloring, but a child who carried something traceable to a different origin. He went looking for an explanation. He sent his father Methuselah to find Enoch, because Enoch had walked with God and would know whether the child was truly of Lamech's line. The account survives in 1 Enoch chapters 106 and 107. Chapter 1, 106-2, describes the infant, and language scholars believe is drawn from an even older source text. His hair was white as wool. His eyes were beautiful. And when he opened them, the house was illuminated. Chapter 1, 106 to 5 records, Lamech's exact fear. He suspected the conception was from among the watchers, among the holy ones, or among the Nephilim. George Nicholsburg, whose 2001 Hermeneia commentary on 1 Enoch remains the most comprehensive scholarly treatment in the English language, noted that chapters 106 and 107 preserve the oldest stratum of Enochic tradition, likely predating the surrounding material in the Book of Watchers, which means this physical description of Noah, the eyes that lit up the room, the white hair, the skin like snow, is not a late addition. It may be the oldest material in the entire corpus, and it frames those features not as beauty marks, but as markers of a non-human ancestry that Lamech could recognize on sight. That alone would be remarkable. But the text does not stop there. Dead Sea Scroll Fragment 4, Q5, 134, from Cave 4 at Qumran, is known among scholars by 2 names. Some call it the birth of Noah. Others call it the elect of God text, because it is not entirely clear whether the figure it describes is Noah or a messianic figure expected at the end of the age. The fragment is written in Aramaic and dates by paleographic analysis to approximately the 1st century before the Common Era. The tradition it preserves is older than the scroll itself. What 4Q534 describes is a child born with marks. The Aramaic uses a word carrying the sense of distinguishing features present at birth, signs setting this person apart from those around them. The fragment states that the marks are on his thighs, that his hair is red, and that his eyes are as radiant as the sun. The radiance in the Aramaic tradition refers to a specific optical property, what modern readers would recognize as a light iris that catches and reflects light differently from a dark one, appearing to generate brightness rather than absorb it. James Vanderkam at the University of Notre Dame, one of the foremost authorities on the Qumran texts, noted that 4Q534 belongs to a cluster of birth narrative fragments that consistently describe the marked individual with unusual physical traits centered on the eyes and hair. The clustering is deliberate. It reflects a tradition that understood certain physical features as inheritance markers traceable to a specific lineage, readable by those who knew what to look for. The lineage the text points to across all of these fragments is the same, the Watcher descent. To understand what the old blood means in this context, you have to go back to how the Watchers themselves are described in the oldest Enochic material. The Book of Watchers, preserved in 1 Enoch chapters 1 through 36, contains the most direct physical language in the tradition, and that language is more precise than most English translations convey. Most English translations are working from a single strand of the tradition, rather than from the full Ge'ez manuscript record. Ephraim Isaac, whose 1983 Oxford translation remains the standard scholarly edition produced directly from the Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscripts, noted that the Ge'ez text uses terminological distinctions in physical descriptions that most English editions collapse into generic language. The most consequential concerns the eyes. The Ge'ez uses 2 separate terms where English translations typically use one. The first is Einat Berhan. Isaac translates this as eyes of light, denoting luminosity, a quality of how the eyes behave rather than a color description. The second is Einat Abeba. He translates this as eyes of the flower, denoting color, a pale or unusual coloration that stands out against the surrounding norm. The distinction matters enormously. Einat Berhan is about what the eyes do. Einat Abeba is about what the eyes are. 2 different categories of the same inherited feature, preserved as 2 separate Ge'ez classifications. Michael Knibb at King's College London, whose 1,978 translation of the Ge'ez text is considered alongside Isaac's as the most authoritative scholarly edition, flagged in his critical notes that the eye terminology in the Ge'ez manuscript tradition appears in context, suggesting it was used diagnostically, not as description for its own sake, but as identification. The tradition was not just saying these people had unusual eyes. It was saying their eyes told you something specific about who they were and where they came from. Before we move on to the bloodline catalog, stop for a second. What you just heard about the Ge'ez classification system for the eye types is the part that changes everything. But it only makes sense when you see it written out next to the original Ge'ez passage, the Einat Berhan designation, the Einat Abeba distinction. It's all in the document linked below. Take 5 seconds right now, grab it, and then come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. The link is in the description. QR code is on your screen. Now let's get specific about which eye colors the Enochic tradition actually names or implies, because this is where the material becomes as precise as anything preserved in the ancient Near Eastern record. The Noah birth narrative in 1 Enoch 106 uses the phrase beautiful eyes. In Ge'ez, the word for beautiful in this context is tsebu, which carries a secondary meaning of rare or unusual, not merely pleasant. The context tells us exactly what kind of rare we are dealing with. Lamech does not say his son's eyes are lovely. He says they are the kind that alarm him. The word tsebu is being used not as a compliment, but as a diagnostic term for something outside the ordinary range. The dominant scholarly interpretation, supported by Nickelsburg, Vanderkam, and Nib working independently from their respective manuscript traditions, is that the eyes in the Noah narrative are light-colored, specifically what the ancient Near Eastern tradition would have recognized as gray or blue, colors that were decidedly unusual in the Levantine population of the period. When the Genesis Apocryphon says the eyes lit up the house, it is using an idiom for a color that reflects rather than absorbs light, appearing luminescent in the way that pale irises do in strong light, catching angles that dark irises do not in a room lit by oil lamps. But the tradition does not limit itself to one category. Fragment 4Q204 from Qumran, part of the Aramaic Enoch collection cataloged by Joseph Millick in his 1976 critical edition, contains a passage in chapter 7 describing the offspring of the Watcher unions as beings who differed in appearance from one another. The Aramaic phrase implies variation within the category, that the Nephilim and their descendants did not carry a single unified appearance, even while sharing certain inherited features. The differences depended on which Watcher lineage they traced through. The Watchers came from different angelic orders with different attributes, different domains, different designations in the heavenly hierarchy. This is where the catalog implied in the text begins to assemble itself. If each Watcher had a specific domain and a specific rank, and if the offspring inherited from both the Watcher father and the human mother, the children of different Watchers would carry different combinations of features, different eye types for different descent lines. The text does not lay this out in a single document, but in fragments, in Ge'ez manuscripts, in Aramaic scrolls across 3 languages. When you read them together and follow the terminology carefully, the pattern becomes legible. Azazel, described in 1 Enoch 8-1 as the one who taught humanity metallurgy, cosmetics, and the instruments of war, is associated in the Ge'ez commentary tradition of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church with what the commentators call the fire sign. The Ethiopian scholarly tradition describes his descent line as carrying a warm and unusual coloring in the eyes. Not light in the gray-blue sense, but warm and luminous in the way that amber-toned irises appear lit from within. Golden amber, distinct from both the cool pale gray of the Noah line and the darker eyes of the surrounding population. Shemyaza, the leader of the 200 Watchers who descended to Mount Hermon, according to 1 Enoch 6-6, is associated with a different category in the tradition. His name in the Aramaic means, the name has seen. His descent line is associated with the Einot Burhan classification that Isaac identified. Eyes of light. Not luminous in the amber or golden sense, but light in the way still water appears, light on a gray morning, pale enough to read clearly in low illumination, gray-toned rather than warm. The Ethiopian Church's commentary tradition connects the Shemyaza lineage to the pale gray or blue-gray designation as the characteristic inherited marker of that descent line. The third...
Okay, so what you think? Is there something?
Shalom, yes, sir.
Yeah, these
That,
all funny color eyes is come to find out they tied to the Watchers.
yes, sir. And that's probably why Lamech wondered what was going on, how his bloodline, I mean, who, that's his seed. So what's going on? What happened? Why is his seed producing a child that has that fair skin and eyes like that?
Exactly, and this is what I mean by that people, now we're in 2026, they can see that certain things been tampered with and altered, and they think that it's minor. But like I keep saying, they mutilated our text, they mutilated our records. So what we're looking at right here was that Enoch went all the way in on identifying who these people were by these different colors. We see all these people with the funny looking eyes and all that. We think it's part of humanity, but come to find out, Enoch had all that was documented. He was taken out.
Yes, sir. And so by them, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
By them using this doctrining, taking things and spit to their narrative because they have an agenda. Um, Even back then, they wanted to make sure that they, as who they were, continue to rule, continue to have something over others. So that's why they made it that way, because just like he was explaining the words, how they changed them, how they put it to the English meaning, which it didn't mean that. And now everyone thinks, oh, those eyes are so pretty, but that pretty is not the meaning of those eyes that Noah had.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? Okay. So with that being said, I wanted to shine a light on it. I'll be talking about this too. And like I said, a lot of times I think that it goes, the understanding of it and severity of it is not really received. So I'm always talking about how in 70 AD, right, the reason why Titus and Vespasian was brought in to run those Edomites out of the land of Israel, they had, because of who they were. They was faking. They were posing as the Israelites. And so they understood that because of who our Redeemer was and our interaction with him, the Israelites had a certain zeal about themselves. Well, these people were trying to emulate that zeal, but it was perverted. And they was causing so much, it was so perverted, it was causing so many problems all around the Roman Empire. That's why eventually, like I said, Hadrian came in and backfilled Jerusalem, and they covered it over with dirt. He brought 2 or 3 legions in there, and they covered it over with dirt. But it was because of these people were so they were so backwards. They were trying so hard to portray themselves as Israelites with the zeal that our forefathers had, but it was off. It was thrown off. So let me check it out. What I'm talking. This example of it, what I mean today. I didn't put it on my I didn't put it in where I can play it, on over TV. I just want to let it play out, let it play. Okay. So here we go. Check it out.
It happens every year.
So check it out.
Thousands of Israeli flags, carried by young men, mostly teenagers,
Young men.
packed shoulder to shoulder, marching through the stone alleys of the Muslim quarter in Jerusalem's Old City.
Check it out.
Their aim is to intimidate and harass Palestinians. They're singing and chanting, "Death to Arabs," "May your village burn," and "A Jew has a soul, an Arab is a son of a bitch." It's called the Flag March, and it draws young, angry, often extremist Israelis,
check it out,
intolerant, hate-filled, calling for the death and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Israeli soldiers and police look on. They do nothing to stop the violent mobs of extremists. It's all sanctioned by the state and fully endorsed by several Israeli ministers. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who oversees the police himself, marched this year and raised a flag on the Temple Mount. The Israeli police, who let this all happen, answer to Ben-Gvir. What other liberal democracy would not only allow, but sanction such a display of hatred? The question isn't really whether Israel is a democracy. It has elections, it has courts, it has a free press that still somehow prints stories the government hates. The question is, what kind of democracy raises a generation like this one, and whether democracy is even the whole story anymore. The real question is, what is Israel today? Ask an Israeli official what Israel is, and you'll hear the same line almost word for word. The only democracy in the Middle East.
But the only democracy in the Middle East is Israel.
Ardent supporters of Israel will also tell you that it's a Western democracy surrounded by autocracies, holding the line for liberal values in a hostile neighborhood. They're good lines, often employed to maintain support for Israel among Western populations. They're also increasingly a cover story. Because democracy was never really the contested word. Israel holds real elections, and power actually changes hands. The contested word is liberal. And on that word, the evidence, the polling, the legislation, the statements from Israel's own cabinet ministers tells a very different story than the one told by the pro-Israel lobby and the politicians in Washington, D.C. Another Israeli scholar, Nurit Peled El-Hanan, went looking for that ethos in the textbooks themselves. She examined 17 Israeli school books and found Palestinians either erased from the material entirely or drawn in cartoonish, threatening terms, while Jewish towns are rendered vibrant, modern, and alive. The Arabic word Nakba means catastrophe, and it's the term used by Palestinians to refer to their forced 1948 displacement. When the Israeli government briefly allowed the word Nakba into a single Arabic language textbook, the next education minister banned the word outright in Israel. 2 years later, the Knesset passed a law stripping funding from any school that so much as commemorates it. That's not just being reactionary, that's entrenching a single set of beliefs into the national curriculum. And it's working exactly as designed. Among Israel's newest voters, 18 to 21 years old, roughly 3 in 4 identify as right-wing. Only 1 in 20 call themselves left-wing. Those kids who see themselves increasingly as right-wing, those are the kids marching through Jerusalem's old city every year, chanting, "Death to Arabs." They're not an aberration. They are the product of Israel's fanatical Zionism.
Okay, what do you think about that? Anybody got any comments on it? Okay. Yeah, so that's like I said, this is what these are ways to be on the shadow of a doubt, to understand that these people are not God's people. They're not the ones, they're not the original people that God went to Egypt and delivered out of Egypt. There's something else. And I was showing you how that the reason the Romans got rid of them was because they had this perverted zeal, trying to emulate the real Israelites, and the spirit that the Most High had on them. They were trying to duplicate it, but it was causing problems all over the known world, especially for the Roman Empire, and that's why they had to do something with them. Okay, they ran them out, ran them to Spain and Portugal, like I said. Okay, so with that being said, we go to my topic for discussion, and this is like I said, you got a lot of people. They're not necessarily religious, and they're not necessarily Hebrews or whatever, but they bringing forth information that's shining a light on the fact that who Jesus Christ, JC, who he really is. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna listen to this, and then we'll talk about it, the content. Okay, check it out. It's like I said, 6 historically irrefutable proofs that Jesus never existed. Check it out. A lot of this.
Imagine for a moment that
a lot of this information is on my. I have a series of like 13 videos, if I'm not mistaken. A non-Messianic conversation with a non-Messianic Hebrew. Okay, check it out.
Figure at the very center of Western faith, the man millions pray to every single day, the person whose image hangs on walls, whose name is whispered in desperation and shouted in triumph, may never have walked the earth at all. Imagine that the Jesus you were told loved you, died for you, and rose again might be nothing more than a carefully crafted idea. And now ask yourself why the most powerful institution in history, the very church that built its authority on his existence, has fought for centuries to silence every trace of doubt. This is not just about faith. This is about truth. And the truth is devastating, because the first irrefutable proof that Jesus never existed is hidden in the silence of history itself. For if Jesus truly lived in the time we are told, during the reign of Tiberius, walking through Galilee,
Jerusalem, and the Roman world, performing miracles, drawing crowds, raising the dead, defying authorities. Why do the records of that very era say nothing about him? Think about it. Rome was obsessed with record keeping. Roman officials documented everything from tax records to minor rebellions, from eclipses to famines. And yet there is not a single contemporary Roman record mentioning a man named Jesus performing wonders or leading masses. How can the greatest miracle worker in history be invisible to the historians of his own century? Some may point to Josephus, a Jewish historian, but even scholars within the church admit his famous passage about Jesus is a later Christian interpolation, a forgery inserted into his writings long after he was dead. So again, where are the genuine accounts? Why does Philo of Alexandria, a Jewish philosopher living in Jerusalem at the very time Jesus was said to be teaching, who wrote extensively on Jewish customs, teachers, and conflicts, never mention him even once? How could Philo overlook the man who supposedly overturned the temple tables, caused uproar among priests, and had thousands of followers? The silence is deafening. It is not that references to Jesus were lost. It is that they were never there to begin with. And this absence is not trivial. It is crushing. Because if the man himself did not leave a trace, then everything that followed is a construction, a carefully engineered myth. And here is where the first reflection hits you. If Jesus were real, would not his name thunder across the writings of Tacitus, Seneca, or Pliny the Elder? Yet they are silent. Would not Jewish rabbis in the first century debate his teachings endlessly? But they are silent. Would not Roman governors who supposedly condemned him leave notes or letters? But they are silent. What does this tell you? It tells you that the greatest man who ever lived according to faith never appeared in the pages of history according to fact. And if he never appeared in the pages of history, the only conclusion is that he never appeared in life. You have been told that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but when an entire century of meticulous historians, governors, philosophers, and poets all fail to mention the most controversial figure of the era, the absence becomes damning. It is not silence, it is a void screaming at us to wake up. The church has long known this, which is why they scramble to hold on to scraps of supposed evidence, because without these scraps, the entire edifice crumbles. But scraps cannot build a man, scraps cannot resurrect a savior, and scraps cannot explain why the very century of his supposed life is void of him. Ask yourself, why the Gospels were written decades after his death by anonymous hands. Ask why no eyewitness left us a single letter, a single carving, a single word. The answer is brutal. There was no Jesus to witness. The myth was written later to give hope, to give control, to give Rome and the church the weapon of faith. And now you see how the silence of history itself is proof number one, the first pillar that collapses the illusion. And once you understand this silence, you begin to see that everything else built on it cannot stand. Because if the foundation is missing, the house falls. The church knows this, scholars know this, and now you know it too. And if you are still not shaken, ask yourself again, how can billions believe in someone whom history itself forgot? The truth is, history did not forget him. History never knew him, and that changes everything. This is the first irrefutable proof, the silence of history, and it is only the beginning, because once you open this door, 5 more crushing proofs wait behind it, and each one is more devastating than the last. The second irrefutable proof that Jesus never existed lies in the undeniable fact that his story is not original. It is borrowed, recycled, and repackaged from myths far older than Christianity.
This is a dead giveaway right here. Check it out.
And once you begin to compare the so-called life of Jesus with the lives of ancient gods and saviors, the illusion starts to collapse in your hands. Because here is the shocking reality. Long before the Gospels were ever written, cultures from Egypt, Greece, Rome, and Mesopotamia had savior figures who were born of virgins, who performed miracles, who were betrayed, killed, and resurrected.
Exactly.
Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Osiris of Egypt was dismembered and resurrected. Dionysus turned water into wine and was called the Son of God. Mithras, a Persian and Roman god, was born on December 25th. Celebrated by shepherds and brought salvation through sacrifice. How can we ignore the glaring parallels? Are we to believe that dozens of civilizations all created identical savior myths coincidentally before Jesus? Or is it far more logical that early Christian writers copied and adapted these myths to craft their own savior? Think about the virgin birth. Long before Mary was said to bear without knowing a man, Egyptian myths told of Horus, born to the virgin Isis, attended by wise men, heralded by a star in the east. The so-called miracle of Jesus walking on water echoes the myths of Poseidon and Dionysus. The story of a god-man who dies and rises again was repeated endlessly in pagan traditions because it symbolized nature, the dying and rebirth of crops, the sun's cycle, the hope of renewal. The church knew this, which is why they fought so hard to suppress the stories of Mithra cults, because Mithras was their greatest threat. His followers celebrated communion, eating bread and drinking wine as symbols of their god's body and blood, long before Christians adopted the same ritual. Can you really call it coincidence when the rituals are identical, when the symbols are recycled, when the myths align point by point? The uncomfortable truth is that Jesus is not unique. He is a copy, a myth constructed out of pre-existing myths.
Exactly.
The church knew this because people were already primed to believe in saviors, in virgin births, in resurrections. So they simply gave them another one, wrapped in Jewish prophecy to legitimize it. This is proof number 2. The myth of Jesus is a myth of myths, a patchwork stitched together from the religions that came before.
Exactly.
But the evidence goes even deeper, because not only does Jesus share the traits of pagan gods, he contradicts himself within his own story. And this brings us to proof number 3, the contradictions and impossibilities in the Gospels themselves. Because if Jesus truly lived, his story should be coherent. But instead, it reads like 4 different plays struggling to tell the same tale. Matthew and Luke cannot even agree on his genealogy. One traces him through David one way, the other way. And yet both call him the Son of God. Why would God need a genealogy at all? In one gospel, he is born in a house. In another, he is born in a manger. In one, the family flees to Egypt. In another, they never leave. At his death, one gospel says both thieves mock him. Another says one defends him. In one story, he dies on Passover. In another, he dies the day after. If the gospels cannot agree on the most basic facts, then what are they? They are not eyewitness accounts. They are theological propaganda, stories written to inspire faith, not to report truth. And the contradictions do not stop there. In one gospel, Jesus carries his cross. In another, Simon of Cyrene carries it for him. In one, he prays in agony in Gethsemane. In another, he faces death calmly. And here is the crushing point. If 4 authors cannot agree on the man's birth, life, and death, then what confidence can we have that he even lived? If you or I told 4 different stories about the same event, would we not be accused of lying? Yet entire churches are built on stories that cannot agree on their savior.
Exactly.
Ask yourself, why an all-powerful God would allow his truth to be written in contradictions, unless it was never truth to begin with?
Okay.
He was always a figure of faith and imagination, never of flesh and blood. And once you understand this, you see why the Gospels had to be written decades later, because without them, Christianity would collapse under the weight of Paul's silence. And here is the disturbing reflection. If the first missionary of the faith never quoted the words of Jesus, perhaps there were no words to quote. If the first evangelist never described his miracles, perhaps there were no miracles to describe. And if the first preacher never defended a historical man, perhaps there was no man to defend. And if you feel the ground shaking under your beliefs, it is because you're finally seeing how fragile this story has always been. Paul did not know a man. Paul invented a Christ. And from that invention, the entire religion was born. Proof number 4 destroys the idea of an earthly Jesus. The 5th irrefutable proof that Jesus never existed comes from the very sources Christians desperately cling to as external evidence, the writings of historians like Josephus and Tacitus. Yet once you strip away the layers of church editing, interpolation, and outright forgery, what remains is silence. Let us begin with Josephus, the 1st century Jewish historian who wrote extensively about Jewish life, rebellions, and teachers of his time. In his works, we find the so-called Testimonium Flavanum, a brief passage that appears to mention Jesus, but every serious scholar knows this passage is a fraud inserted by later Christian scribes because it reads like a confession of faith, saying he was the Christ. He rose again and he performed miracles. Do you honestly believe a devout Jew like Josephus would write those words? Impossible.
Okay, so that's this name of the video is 6 historically irrefutable proofs Jesus may have never existed. If you want to watch that or finish watching it, okay, go back over the content. Anybody got any comments on that?
Shalom.
Shalom.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Sister Cheryl. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, sir. So how he is breaking it down, it just brings you back to, yes, it is plagiarism. And they shine it up. And then even when Matthew, the first chapter of the New Testament, why would they say new in the first place? And then by him not knowing how to speak Hebrew, as they say, he wasn't the one who actually wrote it. Someone wrote it for Matthew and put it in Matthew's name. There's a whole lot of things when we start researching and really open our eyes to what is being said and fed to us. Go ahead, sister.
Yes, sir. I was just gonna say that is that the reason why, Brother Leonard, they keep going back to the Old Testament to bring him about, even though his name is not actually mentioned in
Right,
the Old Testament, it's not mentioned at all until you get to the um, the New Testament.
exactly.
So actually, to me, when you look at it, they said conspiracy, right?
Right,
So you got to look at Christ's conspiracy. Like the guy said, he was crafted. He,
exactly,
he said that he was crafted. So when you craft something, you shape it, right? So it
exactly.
was to me as though they were shaping the world to worship man, when we know in the commandments it tells us not to worship man idols. You know what I'm saying? And in
Right,
the Old Testament we serve a living God.
exactly.
So once you get to the New Testament, it's like they take this man, when all before we had a divine being, now all of a sudden there's this man that's there that we should be worshiping.
Right, right. Yeah. So what? When you understand that, um, we know that I was just talking about it when the Lord of hosts sent Nathan to go tell David that he wasn't going to be able to build a temple. He told him that he was going to take the Israelites, his people, his inheritance, and plant them in the land of Israel, and the children of wickedness was not going to bother them. So when you divide that verse, you got it's a race of people that's wicked as hell, and then you got Yahweh's people. So when you get to the point where you get to the council of Nicaea, it just like Moses had told them in Deuteronomy 32 that they were going to sin. He prophesied to him and said, "You're going to sin, and the Most High is going to kick you out off this land. He's going to kick you out of this place." So because of that, now these children of wickedness got our records, and so now they got a way. Now they got a way to take our records and tie JC to them. That's where I was. That's what I was talking about in the series. I was talking about the non-Messianic conversations typology. They was able to look at our scriptures and see how we operate, and then synchronize JC into that. Like I said, one example is Moses. Children, the Pharaoh killed the children, little boys 2 years and younger, and he killed them during the time of Moses, right?
Yes, sir. I'm
So
here. Yes, sir.
So they came back and they put Herod killing little boys 2 years old and younger, and because of JC. So that tie him that makes Jesus like a type of Moses. That's why you call it typology. And then Israel, which is the real son, the nation of Israel, they went into Egypt. Then they got in the book of Matthew, JC going into Egypt. So that's how they tied. That's what you call typology. They brought him into the story. He wasn't part of the story at first, but by them using that typology, they brought him into the story. But it falls apart now in 2027, 26. We can see what they done. It just falls apart.
Right. Yes, sir. I was going to say, if that gentleman was able to find information,
Right.
right, and,
Exactly.
you know, and put it out there, then we should do the same. And I think
Exactly.
that it is because even now, Brother Leonard, we are so quick to worship man here on earth because that is normal. Like I'm saying, if you're not worshiping the pastor, it's a problem. If
Right.
you're not worshiping the first lady of the church, it's a problem. You know,
Right.
if you don't worship, you know, just say your teacher, she has a problem with you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
worship seems to be a problem today when it comes to that, when all before there was a divine figure that all of a sudden became a man, you know, and
Right.
we're supposed to worship man as God now. Like, it's a problem if we don't worship Trump.
Oh yeah. Right.
You
Exactly.
know, he's man.
Right.
Like, you see that, and once you truly understand that, you can see what happened, and they just bringing in trash and expect for everyone to grasp hold to it and run with it. And then if you don't, just because you're not part of the masses, then you're the crazy one. You have the
Exactly.
lack of understanding.
Right. Exactly. And then it's just like we were just looking at. Well, what they took out of the scriptures was Enoch had identified, showed us how to identify these people that the children of wickedness. He's talking about their features. Okay, another one of them is that's it's in their DNA to worship. You know what I'm saying? It's in their DNA to worship me, man.
Yes, sir.
And that's what he tells us. He tells us when he kicked us out of the land, you're gonna go to a land with strange people, and you're gonna pick their ways up. That's where we at.
Yes, sir. And even in the what they call the lost books, the books that were taken, you know, out of the Bible, right? That we are
Right.
starting to discover and read. We don't we don't hear them speaking of Christ.
No.
The
Exactly.
book of Enoch does not speak of Christ.
Right.
It just gives us more insight on what happened to
Exactly.
the, you know, to us as Israelites. And you know, it just goes more in depth on the stories of Abraham and, you know, Isaac and Jacob, what happened to Eve, those type of things. We seem to know more about. And even in the book of Enoch, where it speaks of the seven holy angels, he's not mentioned.
No. Exactly. Like the guy was saying that you can find him in pagan stories. You know what I mean? You can find him in pagan stories like with Mithras, those 16 crucified saviors. He the last one, the 17th one, and all the characteristics that's been laid upon him was laid upon them. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right, exactly, Sister Short. And that information that they do plug into the New Testament, they took it from the Old Testament to
Exactly.
connect it to him to make it seem as though it's a flow
Right.
there. You
Right.
know,
Put a Hebrew take on it.
right. Yes, sir.
Right.
It's crazy. Like once you really learn it and you read it and you do your own research, you can really connect your own dots. Like nobody
Exactly.
has to do that for you.
Exactly.
Of how much we have been, bamboozled, through their teachings.
Right. Yeah, and it's a spell, and like you said, you have to acquire a zeal for the truth and try to search it out. That's how you're gonna break that spell. There's no other way to do it. If you ain't search, if you don't have that desire in you and searching it out, and the Most High put that spirit on you, you're gonna be like everybody else.
Yes, sir. And we don't have to speak of, you know, um, what the church has done to us, because we all have been in the church. I think on this
Exactly.
platform and the listeners, we all have been there in the church, but you just have to throw all of that in the way, in the trash. Like I call it the
Exactly.
new trashman. So you have to take it and throw it in the trash, because if you don't, you're gonna still take bits and pieces of that and think that it's
Right.
it's true. That's why I said there's no such thing as Hebrew Christians. You're
Right.
a Christian. If
Right.
you're in the New Testament, you are a Christian.
Right. And
There's no
Christ,
reason. Yes, sir. You should not have
Jesus
preference.
Christ, all of them is one and the same.
Right, right. There's no reason that as a Hebrew Israelite, you should have to reference anything out of the New Testament.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Shalom. Yes, sir. So as I'm listening and was listening to the thing you played, and as we're speaking now, the one thing I can see is that how the worshiping, like you said, Sister Michelle, how that can be twisted so fine, so thin that one picks up on it, and you're not realizing that you are at until you come into the truth that you're just really worshiping and doing the main thing that is said in the Ten Commandments not to do is worship man and idols. And here there's the cross. They got the cross, and no one looking at it as a worship idol, but it is. Calling the name, that's one thing. Calling that name out gives that power to their name, and they're not knowing it, and they're thinking that that name is saving them, which it's not. So that one commandment that is on everyone is the idol worshiping. When you realize, if you don't realize it or not, you're gravitating to that narrative that they put out since we were, like you say, the 18 years of mind control from birth. If your parent bring you to church, here you're going to hear it. If they were in church, they're going to tell you. And the New Testament is just, like you said, trash.
Okay.
Shalom.
Leonard, oh,
Sorry for my tardiness. Brother Leonard, I listened to the class yesterday with you and Brother AJ, and along with Sister Michelle and Sister Cheryl. That ties into a lot about what you guys were talking about, that outside of this book, the churches, I remember growing up listening to those commercials about what is the international coalition with the Jews and the Christian. I remember watching those videos, and it's like they're pleading for people to send money, and how, basically these are God's chosen people. There's been so much, even outside the Bible, to brainwash us into thinking, oh, I guess this is it, that JC is the one and these are the people. I used to be so confused about how we were sending money from America to help these people when I could see my people suffering. It did not make sense why we didn't have commercials, but even outside the church, like Sister Cheryl was saying, there's just been so much brainwashing tying JC to being our chosen one that will save everybody. Shalom. And coming to the truth makes a difference.
Right. You got something else, Michelle?
Yes, sir, Brother Leonard. I was looking for this to read, and I had wanted to read that. It was in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 10, the true and living God. The true and living God, right? And I just wanted to read verse 10, Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 10. But the Lord is the true God. He is the living God and an everlasting King. At his wrath, the earth shall tremble, and the nation shall not be able to abide in his indignation. So that tells you right there, we serving a living God, and don't understand how they feel as though there's a dead man that's going to come back and save them, and for them to continue to worship him in the church, drink his blood, and eat those little crackers or whatever they call them.
Well, wafers.
Yeah, wafers. That's it. Eat those wafers. Like, it just makes sense once you really look at that, and we don't have to do that to serve the Lord of hosts. It just says to obey his voice, his commandments, laws, and statutes. We don't have to pretend we're drinking blood and eating wafers or whatever. That's just like when he said put the blood on the doorpost. It was blood on the doorpost, not a red ribbon on the doorpost.
Right. Then it was animal blood.
Animal blood, exactly. Yes, sir. Now you got people that's defiling the Lord of hosts, and they'll tie a red ribbon up there. That it makes no sense. So that's the same thing we're doing when it comes to worshiping an idol.
Right. Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me in Jeremiah chapter 10 was he said they're not going to be able to withstand him, right?
Yes, sir.
When he comes. So how is JC he's saying my father and me is one? Well, you got the hell beat out of you with a cat of nine tails.
Right. Yes, sir.
And killed. So but he told you right there in 10, they ain't gonna be able to stand in front of him.
That's right.
That's like the guy was saying. It contradicts everything. The gospel's contradicted everything. It's crazy, man. Oh yeah. Ain't that something?
Yes, sir.
So Liz, yes, sir. When he says, "You see me, you see the Father," which Father looks like him?
And then he come and he got they beat him down, and you know what I'm saying. All of a sudden, that he supposed to be the same God as in the Old Testament.
Right.
The one that came and killed 185,000 Assyrians.
Come on.
Now all of a sudden he getting the hell beat out of him. Crazy.
Yes, sir.
And then once you understand that, you can see how, you can see that it's tied to what I've been saying on those that series I was talking about, how the Buddha, you know what I'm saying? You start to see where all this is coming from. Because they the one was starving themselves. They the one was just like Gandhi. That's what Gandhi doing, what he done. There ain't no that's not the creator, that's not the God in the Old Testament. Okay. Yeah, so with that being, go ahead.
That's why I like say one more thing. If they're so much into it, listening about him, JC's on the cross and he supposed to be asking himself why he forsaked himself, because he said, "Father, why you forsake me?" But in the as they're pulling it from the Old Testament, he's supposed to be the Almighty, the three in one. So why would he ask himself that?
Right. But and then the narrative, like I said, is written in red. That's how they set us up. That's how they set us up. Was written in red, and they said that he said that He's the lamb that was going to be sacrificed from the foundation of the earth. So why you ask that question if you already know you the lamb from the foundation of the earth that's going to be slain? Why would you ask that question? You know what I'm saying? It's
Yes,
crazy.
sir.
Yeah. So it's just stuff like that. It's crazy. But we're gonna go ahead and go into our uh, scripture reading. We read Genesis. We read 3 chapters. Chapter 41, 42, and 43. Somebody want to read chapter 41? Okay, I guess I'll read it.
Brother, I'm sorry, I was not quick enough. I can read Genesis 41, sir.
Okay.
Genesis 41, and it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh woke. And he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servant, and he put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew, servant of the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted out to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee, that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still favored as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears, withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years. The 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up with them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall rise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this. Let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him rule over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or fool in all the land of Egypt. Hand or foot, in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food in the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, For God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty, plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all the lands, that in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you, do. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened up all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all the lands. Shalom, and that was chapter 41 of Genesis.
Okay, you got anything on that?
Yes, sir. It's a lot going on here. Just in the beginning, no one knew anything about the dream and what it meant. And in this case, even what Pharaoh telling them the dream. And then we see that Joseph, before he even speaks about what the dream is, falling in line what we talked about earlier, he didn't give praise or worship to himself. He said, "It's whatever I'm about to tell you is coming from the Lord of hosts." And that in favoring Joseph, that he continued to get favor by being second in command. And I know that's something that we learn and talk about quite often, that he was second in command, and outside of the throne, Joseph had rule over everything. Where was it at? I don't remember where the verse started at, Brother Leonard, but it reminds me of what happens before the Israelites go back with, what was it, Haman? That was trying to...
Haman?
Yeah, yes, sir. That was trying to get all the Israelites to basically be killed and get rid of them. And just by doing what they're supposed to do, he got himself hung. And we see it's the opposite over here. Joseph just did his job and said, I think it's best that you get somebody that's discreet and who you trust. And he didn't know that was about to be him. And in the midst of that, again, Joseph just lifting up the Lord of hosts and not himself. Shalom.
Right. So if you look at start at 39, then you can, I'm always telling people this, you can see the Lord of hosts in it. You can see how you have all these people talking about Yah only and all that. So you start at 39, it says, and the Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God, Yahweh, have showed thee, Lord of hosts, showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou. Right? Then 40, thou shalt be over my house. So go to Michael and Yahweh. Right? Michael over Yahweh house. Thou shalt be over my house. And according unto my word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thee. Same with Michael. Right? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. Yeah. Then 42, and the Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestments of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over the whole land of Egypt. That's Michael all day long. So what Michael doing is what the Yahweh did to him, he endowed that on Joseph. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So anybody else got anything on that? Okay. So I'm in chapter 42. I'll read it. Okay, it says, now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, why do ye look one upon another? And he said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph, 10 brothers, went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he was and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, whence cometh ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan, to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, ye are spies to see the nakedness of the land, ye are come. And they said unto him, nay, my lord, but to buy food, or thy servants come. We are all one man's son. We are the true men. Thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said, thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, that is it that I spake unto you, saying, ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved by the life of the Pharaoh. Ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brethren, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your word may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of the Pharaoh surely ye are spies. And he put them all together into the ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto them the third day, This do, and live, for I fear God. If ye be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye carry corn for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me. So shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is the distress come upon us. And Reuben answered they, saying, spake I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them and wept, and returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before all their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man money into his sack, and to give them provisions for the way. And thus did he unto them. And they laded their asses with the corn, and departed thence. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provenders. In the end, he aspired his money, and behold, it was in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, my money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their hearts failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, what is this that God hath done unto us? And they came unto Jacob, their father, unto the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell unto them, saying, the man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And he said unto him, we are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of one father, of our father. One is not, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, hereby shall I know that ye are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me. Take food for the famine of your household, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that ye are no spies, but that ye are true men. So will I deliver you, your brother, and ye shall track it in the land. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that behold, every man bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob, their father, said unto them, me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not. And ye will take Benjamin away, and all these things are against me. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, slay my two sons, if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him into my hands, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way, indeed which ye go, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. So that was Genesis chapter 42. Anybody got any comments on that? Anything ring a bell? Okay, so we see right here that Joseph, we see that the hand of the Most High in this, and he using Joseph to do it, and so he's it seemed like to me they would have gotten it, but he's requiring Benjamin out of all the people. He's demanding them to bring Benjamin to Egypt. Okay, like I said, that should have been a trigger right there, but they didn't get it. So I'm in chapter 43, the last chapter. Joseph's brethren returned with Benjamin, and the famine was sore in the land. And it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said unto them, go again, buy us a little food. And Judah spake unto him, saying, the man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, ye shall not see my face except your brother be with you. If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, ye shall not see my face except your brother be with you. And Israel said, wherefore dealeth ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And they said, the man asked us straightly of our state and of our kindred, saying, is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And he told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, bring your brethren down? And Judah said unto Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will rise and go, and we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little one. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him. If I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee, then let me bear blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned the second time. And their father Israel said unto them, if it must be so now, do this: take of the best fruits in the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm, and a little honey, spices, myrrh, nuts, and almonds, and take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your of your sacks, carry it again in your hands. Peradventure it was oversight. Take also your brother, and arise, go again unto the man, and God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother. Okay? And Benjamin, if he be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. And the man took that present, and the men took that present, and they took double money in their hands, and Benjamin, and rose up and went down into Egypt, and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, bring these men home, and slay and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon. And the men did as Joseph obeyed, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house. And they said, because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time, or we brought in, that he may seek occasion against us, and fall upon us, and take us for bondmen and our asses. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house, and said, O sir, we came indeed down at the first time to buy food. And it came to pass, when we came to the end, that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight, and we have brought it again in our hands. And the other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. And he said, peace be to you. Fear not. Your God and the God of your fathers have given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money, and he brought Simeon out unto them. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house, and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave them the asses for provender. And they made ready. The presence against Joseph came at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. And he asked them of their welfare, and said, is your father well? The old man of whom ye spake, is he yet alive? And they answered, thy servant, our father, is in good health. He is yet alive. And they bowed down their heads, and made obstinence. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, is this your brother, your younger brother, of whom ye spake unto me? And he said, God be gracious unto thee, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brother, and he sought where to weep. And he entered into the chamber, and he wept there. And he washed his face, and went out, and refrained himself, and said, set on bread. And they set on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians who did eat with him by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptian. And they set before him the firstborn according to his brother, to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men marveled one at another. And he took and sent messages unto them from before him, but Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs, and they drank and were merry with him. So that was Genesis chapter 43. So we see that, like he said, the guy said Joseph had them to put them in order by their birthright, by the way the age, and they looking at that and they saying, well, you know, they still ain't getting it. Okay. Anybody got anything on that? Any comments? Okay, so with that being said, before I close out, let me play this because I'm always talking about this, so I wanted to shine a light on it right quick. This is I talked about how they want you to believe in the book of Revelation that the Antichrist coming, the beast. You know, 407. The way they have it written down in Revelations, but Daniel plainly tells us it's 4 beasts, and these beasts are systems. They're gonna come upon the earth. So there's no way that the Antichrist is the beast. He ain't the beast. We still in the 4th beast. And that 4th beast is the one that received the woman in the head. When it first came on the scene, it was called a Roman Republic. And then, like I said, those giants, those Visigoths, and Vandals, there's 3 different races of giants. They sacked Rome. They tore down Hadrian Wall and they went all the way to Rome and sacked Rome. That's the beast that received the woman in the head. That's the Antichrist. Okay, so let's look at it. We're just going, 76 AD. That's the history of it. The doors of the imperial palace swing open for the last time. A boy dressed in a purple robe, barely 15 years old, watches as a barbarian general walks toward him with slow, deliberate steps. That boy's name is Romulus Augustulus, and within minutes, he will no longer be emperor of Rome. There will be no epic battles, no heroic last stand. So this prophecy taking place right here. No one willing to raise a sword in his defense. The last representative of an empire that ruled the world for over 1,000 years will simply be stripped of his crown like an afterthought, a paperwork formality with no real weight behind it. But wait, how did we get here? How is it possible that the most powerful civilization in human history, the one that ruled 3 continents for centuries, that built roads still in use today, that gave us laws we still follow, crumbled like a sandcastle? The answer does not lie in that single day in 476. It goes back much further. It lives in the invisible cracks that formed over generations, in decisions that seemed insignificant at the time, but that, stacked one on top of the other, would eventually bring down everything Rome had built. And if you stay until the end of this video, you will understand something most history books never quite explain. The fall of Rome was not an accident. It was a warning. But before we go any further, if you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss a documentary. Let's go back. Back to the moment when Rome still seemed untouchable. Picture yourself as a Roman citizen in the 2nd century AD. You are walking through the streets of the capital of the world. All around you stand monuments that feel eternal. The Colosseum, thundering with the roar of 50,000 spectators on any given afternoon. The baths of Caracalla, where thousands of citizens bathe, read, and socialize beneath ceilings of marble and mosaic. The Roman Forum, the beating heart of an empire that stretches from the cold shores of Britain to the scorching sands of Egypt, from the mountains of Spain to the deserts of Syria and Mesopotamia. Everything you see carries the mark of Rome. Your legions are undefeated. Your language is the language of power. Your civilization defines what it means to be human. So what could possibly go wrong? Everything. Absolutely everything. The truth is that Rome was already sick long before the barbarians ever knocked on its gates. The first real symptoms appeared during what historians
a period of roughly 50 years, between 235 and 284 AD, that nearly tore the empire apart completely. During those 5 decades, more than 50 men claimed the title of emperor. Some lasted years, others lasted months. Most were killed by their own soldiers, victims of an endless cycle of betrayal and civil war that left the state permanently weakened. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. To understand how Rome fell, we first need to understand what made it great. And the answer is not what most people expect. It was not just military power, though Rome's legions were formidable. It was not engineering genius alone, though the aqueducts, roads, and bridges they built remain standing 2,000 years later. The true secret of Rome was something far more subtle: its ability to absorb. Rome did not just conquer peoples, it turned them into Romans. A Gaul, a Spaniard, a Syrian could become a Roman citizen, participate in politics, serve in the legions, even rise to the imperial throne. That was Rome's great gift, transforming its enemies into partners. But that same strength would eventually become its greatest weakness, because while Rome kept absorbing new peoples, it slowly diluted its own identity. The legions that had once been filled with Italian citizens loyal to the Republic were now packed with Germanic soldiers, Thracians, Syrians, men who fought for a paycheck, not for Rome. And right there, in that invisible shift, the seed of destruction was planted. So when did the decline actually begin? Some historians point to the year 180 AD, when Marcus Aurelius died. He was the last of what ancient writers called the 5 good emperors, philosopher kings who governed with wisdom and restraint. His son Commodus was the complete opposite, a megalomaniac who believed himself to be the reincarnation of Hercules, who preferred fighting in the gladiatorial arena to running an empire. His disastrous reign blew the doors off the chaos that followed. After his assassination in 192 AD, Rome plunged into a civil war that revealed a terrifying truth. The throne of Rome was bought with swords, not legitimacy. But the real crisis, the one that almost split the empire into pieces, came in the 3rd century. Picture the situation. The empire's frontiers stretch for thousands of kilometers, from Hadrian's Wall in Britain all the way to the deserts of Mesopotamia. Defending those borders requires massive armies, and massive armies cost enormous sums of money. Meanwhile, the Roman economy is wobbling. The gold and silver mines are running dry. The currency is being devalued. Emperors, desperate to pay their troops, order coins minted with less and less precious metal. A coin that contained 95% silver in the 1st century AD contains barely 5% by the 3rd century. The result? Runaway inflation. Prices skyrocket. Trade grinds to a halt. Cities grow poor. And while Rome bleeds out economically, its enemies are getting stronger. To the north, Germanic tribes that were once little more than a nuisance are now organizing into dangerous confederations. The Goths, the Vandals, the Franks, the Alemanni. Names that would soon terrorize the entire Roman world. To the east, the Sasanian Persian Empire resurges with force, reclaiming territories Rome had long considered its own. Then, in 260 AD, something unthinkable happens. Emperor Valerian is captured by the Persians in battle. It is the first time in history that a Roman emperor has been taken prisoner by a foreign enemy. The humiliation is total. According to ancient chronicles, Persian king Shapur I used Valerian as a human footstool to mount his horse. And when the emperor finally died in captivity, his skin was reportedly flayed and displayed in a Persian temple as a trophy. Think about what that means. The emperor, the man Romans considered almost a living god, reduced to a prop, a symbol of mockery. Rome's image of invincibility was shattered forever. Then came Diocletian, a Dalmatian soldier of humble origins who clawed his way up through the ranks and seized the throne in 284 AD. Diocletian understood something no emperor before him had been willing to admit. The empire was simply too large for one man to govern.
His solution was radical. He split the empire into two halves, East and West, each with its own emperor and its own Caesar. This system, known as the Tetrarchy, worked for a while. Diocletian stabilized the economy, reformed the army, and restored a degree of order. But in doing so, he also institutionalized the division. Rome was no longer one. It was two separate entities that would, over time, take entirely different paths. And this is where the story gets truly fascinating. Because while the Western Roman Empire slowly fell apart, the Eastern Roman Empire flourished. Constantinople, the new capital founded by Emperor Constantine in 330 AD, became the richest city in the world. While Rome decayed, Constantinople shone. And the division was not just political or economic. It was cultural, linguistic, and religious. The West spoke Latin. The East spoke Greek. The West clung to old Roman traditions. The East embraced Christianity with deep, army collapsed, so the state could not pay its soldiers. Unpaid soldiers rebelled. Rebellions triggered civil wars. Civil wars weakened the frontiers. Weak frontiers allowed invasions. Invasions destroyed the economy, and the cycle started all over again.
So when you listening to that, you can see we in the same state right now. Everything you see them saying right there, we're in the same state right now in America. So the Lord holds words. Any comments on that? The name of the video is "This is how the greatest empire in history died." In case you want to watch that whole thing. The name of the channel is Forgotten Empires. Anybody got anything else before we go?
Oh,
Any comments?
Shalom. Yes, sir. Just like you said, it is happening in the United States, and the way this chief president, he's going by it the wrong way, but he wants to, deport all the people that's coming in and try to make it great again. He's saying, but it wasn't that great from the beginning with the rulers that they had over it. So yes,
Right.
sir.
Okay. Anybody else got anything before we go?
Yes, sir. Brother Leonard, sometimes I'm not always like today, exhibit A. I'm not always in a class or on time, but I'm always listening, and things are they just keep adding up, and questions I have just keep making sense. But in regards to the video you just played and shared, there was something about how military personnel started rioting because of whatever. I did not know until recently that aboard this ship that's out near the Strait of Hormuz, that there's people that have been out there for 9 months deployed, and they don't have what they need. I just learned 1 or 2 days ago they're running low on deodorant, toothpaste, essentials. Somebody said something about, they told their loved ones anyway, their loved ones are in these interviews, that they probably eat a cup of rice and two tortillas a day because that's what's left on the ship. And so that last bit when you played that and it talked about military personnel rioting, the family members in these interviews were saying, yes, their loved ones want to do whatever they can to help, but at what cost? You don't hear. I think one family member said something along the lines of, guys talk about being in the military and down in the dirt and eating MREs, and he said, yeah, but you're not doing that for 9 months. Apparently he had a son that has been gone without, even though he's quote unquote serving the country. And we all know at this point they're not serving this country, but they're serving a country.
Right.
So that video, yes, sir. It's amazing to keep hearing things that we're seeing just be a repeat of exactly what you shared, that a nation falling apart.
Okay. Anybody else got anything else before we go? Any comments?
I do have a question, Brother Leonard, in chapter 18 of Second Kings.
Okay.
It is verses 1 through 4. It's about Hezekiah and his good reign over the kingdom. Now it came to pass in the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, that Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father did. Verse 4. He removed the high places, and brake the images, and cut down the groves, and brake in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it, and he called it Nehushtan. My question is in verse 4, Brother Leonard. I have two. We see that in verse 4, Hezekiah removed the high places. Um, is it right or wrong to believe that anytime the Tanakh is saying high places, that it's always the ziggurats?
No, the high place is, if you go back to the 200 angels that came down, like I was saying, when they come, when those angels ascend from heaven, the first place they come to on the earth is a mountaintop. That's the high
Yes, sir.
place. So
Okay.
and that's why the Nephilim, they was going up in the high places up where their fathers was at, up in the mountain. That's how we know Moses came to the mountain of God. But that's not Yahweh. Michael on that mountain. These angels are coming down on mountains. And then so that's how you get the plateaus. That's the high places.
Okay.
And they would go up there and make sacrifices up in these high places. And then which was a false worship against what the Lord of hosts said. That's why you would see when a righteous king would come, he would destroy those high places.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Also, it says Hezekiah, along with breaking or removing the high places and breaking images, it says he cut down the groves. What were happening in the groves? I've read that quite often, but I don't understand what people are doing with these groves. If you could explain that, please.
If you go to Genesis 18, right?
Yes, sir.
3 angels came to Abraham, right?
Yes, sir.
And
Mm,
they sit under the tree.
okay.
And they sit under the tree and they did eat. Well, did it also say that's what Moses was at? Moses was at the oak of Mamre. That's a fallen that's a giant, a Nephilim.
Okay.
So when these people was meeting with these angels, demons, or whatever, when they would meet with them, they come in contact wherever they came in contact with them, they would venerate that area.
Mm,
And then if you want to really see really see that, go to Game of Thrones. That first,
okay.
the king. I think it's like a second episode or the first season, the second episode. They show you how he keep going out to this grove, and
Mm,
he takes stuff out there, bring stuff like the wise men did. They brought gold and silver and frankincense. They would bring that and put it there at that place where they met this angel at, or wherever they met there, and they'll venerate that place. It's a grove,
okay. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
right?
So Hezekiah, and later on, I've flipped the pages now, but later on, they go on to say that there was, since him, there was no other like him since then. And
Exactly.
in my reading of the books of Kings, First and Second Kings, there are other kings doing as their father David, but he is the first one where it doesn't end with but this king left the high places. He's the first one that I read that actually got rid of them. And I did not know also in verse 4 it says that he got rid of that brazen serpents that Moses made.
They turned into idol.
Yes, sir. I didn't know up until then that all this time there were still Israelites turning and worshiping this thing instead of the Lord of hosts. I didn't know that, and it's very surprising to know after so many chances being given per se that they were still worshiping this thing. That was very eye-opening. Shalom.
Well, yeah, Hezekiah did the same thing. I mean, Josiah. Go read that.
Yes.
Josiah did what Hezekiah did, but it actually says there's no other man like that did what Josiah did. But yeah, so with that being said, anybody else got anything else before we close out? Anybody got something? Anything they want to shine a light on? Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom to everybody. We have our men's advanced Bible study tomorrow night. The women can come in through YouTube. So I'm gonna say shalom, shalom, and another shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
I highly recommend that you get this book and you read it because it's a must that you understand who God head is in the order that's in the Old Testament in Tanak, because it's not the same as in the New Testament. And when you read this and you get an understanding, then the scriptures open up and then you begin to understand. So I highly recommend that you get this book. It's the Elohim of Israel